What if I told you the next global superpower doesn't want to dominate the world, it wants to redesign it? While the West is divided and China is distrusted, one nation is quietly becoming the voice of over 100 countries. That nation is India. And it's not just rising, it's leading the global South into a new world order. The world is changing, not through war, not through conquest, but through quiet, calculated shifts in power. The global South, nations once labeled as developing or third world, are rising. At the heart of this shift stands India. From BRICS to the G20, from trade corridors to tech diplomacy, India is not just participating, it's leading. In today's video, we'll explore how and why India is helping reshape the global order and what it means for the future. To understand India's rise today, we first need to understand the idea of the global South. Historically, after World War II, the world order was largely defined by the victors, Western powers, led by the United States and its allies. They built international institutions like the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, creating rules that reflected their interests and values. Most nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, although independent in name, were economically and politically marginalized in this system. These nations came to be referred to as the Third World, later rebranded as the Developing World, and now increasingly known as the Global South, a term that speaks not just of geography, but of shared experiences, colonialism, economic dependency, and the struggle for a voice in global governance. But that label no longer defines weakness. The Global South now comprises rising economies, growing populations, vast natural resources, and emerging political confidence. Countries like India, Brazil, South Africa, Indonesia, and Nigeria are asserting themselves. They're not just reacting to the West, they're creating parallel institutions, trade corridors, and alliances that reflect their values. This isn't just a demographic shift, it's a power shift. Amid this emerging world, India holds a unique and powerful position. Unlike China, India is a democracy. Unlike Russia, India isn't entangled in global conflicts. Unlike many in the West, India has deep historical, cultural, and economic ties to other Global South nations, especially across Asia and Africa. India is now the fifth largest economy in the world, and by some measures, it may overtake Germany and Japan by the end of this decade. It is the world's most populous country, a massive domestic market, and a powerful human resource base. Geographically, India sits at a strategic crossroads between East and West, a hub for Indo-Pacific trade with access to both the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea via strategic partnerships. India's neutral stance in global conflicts, particularly the Ukraine-Russia war, has allowed it to maintain economic ties with the West while continuing defense deals with Russia. It's a tightrope that few nations can walk, but India has done so with remarkable skill. India is also driving the creation of alternative global frameworks, like the International Solar Alliance, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, and its leadership in the Quad Alliance, redefining diplomacy through innovation and pragmatism. India's influence isn't accidental. It's built on four key pillars that are powering its rise in the Global South and beyond. 1. Technology diplomacy. India's digital transformation is a case study in scalable governance. Its public tech stack, Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, and CoIN, are now being adopted or adapted by nations across Africa and Southeast Asia. India isn't exporting smartphones. It's exporting systems that empower citizens and modernize governance. This is soft power, redefined too. Defense diplomacy. India is transitioning from the world's largest arms importer to a regional exporter. It has sold Tejas light combat aircraft, coastal radar systems, patrol boats, and defense training to nations like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Mauritius. Through military exercises like Milan and Malabar, India is building strategic trust with navies around the world while protecting its maritime interests. Number 3. Cultural and educational influence. India's soft power, yoga, Ayurveda, Bollywood, literature, and philosophy already spans continents. But now it's being backed by state strategy. India is offering scholarships, opening cultural centers, and expanding educational collaboration with nations across Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. This builds generational loyalty, not just temporary alliances. Number 4. Geopolitical balancing. India's greatest strategic strength lies in its ability to balance relationships. It buys arms from Russia while signing defense pacts with the US. It partners with Israel and the UAE while maintaining strong ties with Iran and Saudi Arabia. This multi-alignment model, not non-alignment, is India's foreign policy signature. India's rising influence isn't just theory. It's visible on the world stage in 3 major examples. 1. Voice of the Global South Summit, 2023. India hosted a virtual summit with over 120 developing countries, giving them a platform to shape the global agenda ahead of the G20 summit. This wasn't just diplomacy, it was vision. India positioned itself as the leader among equals, uniting voices often ignored by the global elite. 2. African Union joins G20 on India's initiative. During its G20 presidency in 2023, India made history by pushing for the African Union's permanent membership in the G20. This move signaled a commitment to a more representative global order and cemented India's role as a bridge between continents. Number 3. Climate diplomacy with equity. India has become a loud voice for climate justice, arguing that nations who polluted less shouldn't have to sacrifice more. Instead of blindly following Western carbon targets, India is pushing for equitable energy transitions, green tech cooperation, and climate finance reforms. This appeals to a wide swath of countries with similar concerns, from Indonesia to Kenya to Brazil. India's path to global leadership is promising, but it's not without obstacles. Internally, it still faces economic inequality, infrastructure gaps, and bureaucratic inertia. Externally, it must navigate a volatile neighborhood, with an aggressive China, a fragile Pakistan, and increasing US-China rivalry. The biggest challenge, though, is credibility. Can India deliver consistent growth while staying democratic and inclusive? Can it lead the global South without falling into the same patterns of dominance that it once opposed? And can it maintain strategic autonomy in a multipolar world without being forced to choose sides? These are not easy questions, but they define what the next decade will look like, not just for India, but for the world. India's rise is not about dominance, it's about representation. For the billions who were left out of the post-war order, for the voices that were silenced in global forums, India's emergence is a signal that the world is no longer bipolar or unipolar, it's multipolar. And in this new world, the global South, with India at its core, isn't just rising, it's rewriting the rules. If you found this video insightful, drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for weekly strategic deep dives from an Indian perspective.